welcome to Guardian Talks. My name is Dolade Wanze and we will be reviewing elections 2019. With me in the studio is Leo Sobechi. Leo Sobechi is the politics editor of The Guardian. And my far left, I have Toyin Bakare. Toyin Bakare is an online editor at The Guardian. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So we're going to go straight into it. Elections 2019. We know it's not over yet because we still have a rerun happening in a couple of days. But we're going to look at how much success, if we could call it that we have already recorded. First, it started with that initial postponement, dying minutes postponement, I could call it, because we were all ready to vote. And then we finally had the first election, which was the presidential and then elections into the upper legislative house, and then after that we had the governorship elections. So we're going to look at how the process has been, looking at the two elections, and we're going to look at it in the context of what elections in Nigeria has always been like, right? Let me come straight to you first, Toyin. Toyin, you were on ground, not on ground in the field, you were on ground in the studio, essentially, in your situation room, together with your team, and you manned both elections, right? Tell me what you observed.
I think the first thing we need to recognize the level of preparedness of INEC. INEC had 4 years to prepare for 2019 elections. By the budget delay and those undercurrent of political preparations in Nigeria, 4 years is a long time to prepare for anything. Yeah. But the last minute postponement spoke negatively on INEC. I think that sort of took away the enthusiasm that people felt for the election. A lot of people wanted to vote, but when that enthusiasm was taken away from that participation, it affected voters' turnout.
So you think that we could have had more people participating in the presidential elections than we actually recorded?
I have a friend who traveled all the way from Port Harcourt, spent over 100,000 to book plane tickets. He couldn't come back to Lagos for the next for the election when it was to take place after the postponement. There are people like that all over Nigeria. Those who even came from their abroad to come and vote. Those people couldn't have voted because of the postponement. There were plans put in place by different people, before the election, and then INEC came with the last minute postponement. Everything just went negative. So I think that's took a lot of shine out of the election.
Interestingly, I think I actually observed a bit differently because for the presidential elections, I observed in Abuja, and on the day that I left just the day before elections, the first one that was postponed now, the one that was February, what date was that again? February 16th, yeah. So I traveled on the 15th, and I recall that on the flight, on my way out, to Abuja, leaving Lagos to Abuja, at the airport wasn't busy. The plane was half filled. Like, there were lots of seats for you to just move around if you wanted to, But the week following, when I was going back to Abuja for the new elections now, if you like, the aircraft was packed. The airport, at least the airport I traveled through, that's Murtala Mohammed Airport now, MMA2 actually, it was filled. And we had reports of gridlock, serious gridlock actually, because I know that bridge, the River Niger Bridge, that's a bridge that links Asaba into Aba now. I recall that there was some serious gridlock there, and it looked like, people were actually returning to vote. Although some other people argued that maybe people were just afraid and saying, I better go somewhere safe, But I mean, I thought that people became more determined to vote after that postponement, or what do you think, Leo?
Well, to me, it was just like, usually people say save a date. February 16 was like a very later day for Nigerians, and a lot of people looked forward to that date with enthusiasm and passion. Then for INEC to suddenly shift that election, it was an anticlimax.
Oh, wow.
It deflated that passion, that enthusiasm that they are prepared. After that date, a lot of people lost interest.
Meaning that we actually could have had more people come out to that election.
Let me give you a bit of stats. We ran a poll on our Twitter handle. About 75% of respondents, we had 4,960 respondents. 75% of them said they were going to vote. Now, we need to understand that social media participation is different from real life participation.
Yeah.
How many people do we have on Twitter that are active? And how many people do we have offline that are active? So we need to take that into consideration. Now, because people who are packed in the plane does not mean that a lot of people actually voted. How many people will use plane? We know flying plane is a bit realistic. Now, those who will actually do the voting are not the elite, they are the common people on the street. So how many of these people travel down to their villages to vote? My dad traveled from Ogba to Badagry. The proximity isn't a problem for him. He drove down the first time, the election was postponed, he came back. When the election was supposed to take place, he drove down himself down to Badagry. But there are people who had to contend with greater distance, who wouldn't undertake such journey again after the first disappointment.
And a lot of people also think that postponement could have been announced earlier. Do you think so too? Do you both agree?
Yeah. I think I agree with that. If, for instance, you have announced the postponement on a Thursday, I will know I don't need to travel. Maybe on a Wednesday, I don't need to travel. I don't need to waste money.
So the Saturday following, when the election now finally held, were you impressed with the process? I mean, were you happy? Did you think that it was worth the postponement? I mean, with the performance that INEC put up in terms of deployment of materials, deployment of their officials, and the general conduct of the elections the Saturday following, well, were you impressed? Did you think that the postponement was worth it?
Well, to me, I wasn't, because those who turned out to vote on the second day, for me, they were just those people that actually came because they were induced. The serious-minded voters never cared, because it is just like failing to fulfill a promise. You know how grave it is. That disappointment is monumental. Actually, a lot of sane minds expected the INEC as they were to be overhauled. You know what it means?
Overhauled after following that postponement?
That particular postponement.
Oh, I see.
It was like a dagger to the heart of the nation.
Oh, well.
They did much damage to the electoral process. So whoever came later to come and vote, I believe
and the conduct of the officials now during the elections, were you impressed? From the time that voting started in so many polling units, and then with all the faults that some polling units still the challenges that happen with so many polling units and voters being disenfranchised, maybe because the equipment was faulty, or the others that even made those that came out early, for instance, and the electoral officers were not there and then had to turn back. What did it say of the whole postponement to you?
Well, I don't know, but for me, it is always said that there is no second opportunity to make a first impression.
Oh, wow.
After that first initial postponement, the zeal to vote started. And for me, it calls to question the recruitment process of INEC staff. Because in certain areas, especially in Kaduna where I monitor the election, some young people say that we went for training only to come day before the election to see names that were strange, that never attended any of the workshops. So they were like, what's happening? None of the people listed attended. Then they said, when we hear such complaints, do you think people can still repose confidence in the electoral process? No.
So things were about to go wrong if that was what happened. The people that were originally trained for the process did not end up administering the process. So where did those other people come from, and when were they trained to conduct the elections?
They were not trained. They were cloned by politicians, passed over. In fact, I was shouting in Kaduna that, hey, Mr. Reg, do you know we have generations watching us? What legacy are you leaving behind? How can you sit down comfortably when a space of just 1 kilometer, materials cannot get to that place until 1 o'clock to start accreditation by 2, and voting went into the wee hours of the day?
So that was in Kaduna. Okay, tell me about it. So it looks like you have the bird's eye view in the sense that you were monitoring
Lagos,
elections,
especially for
getting results
governorship
from all
election
over.
and state of assembly. It was a bit horrible in Lagos. Not even a bit. It was very horrible in Lagos because we had a lot of centers where ad hoc staff had to protest before they could get their emolument. If you have hired people to do certain things and they had to protest before they could get their payment, it means that they didn't have confidence in you as an organization. So that affected a lot of things in Lagos.
And I recall while that delay was going on, and when you had that protest going on at the INEC centers. Yeah, protest going on. I was in the field where you had electorates sitting down waiting for the officers, and then I began to explain to some of them, okay, this is what is going on, that's why you have this delay, please, you guys, if you can just hold on, hopefully they would solve it. And then some of the electorates were telling me that the so-called INEC officials that they were waiting for were being selfish by protesting on the morning of the election when they should be voting.
Well, no, there's a fine.
Do you find that?
There's a fine line between fighting for your rights and being patriotic.
Okay.
Now, is it possible for them to get what was due to them before or after the election? After they have
Slim
done everything?
It boils down to the issue of integrity.
That's the
The
point.
moment you have to postpone an election you fix 4 years before, nobody who is sane should actually repose any confidence in you. You have failed.
So
that is why that is different.
I think the protest was informed by the fact that they felt if we don't get the payment before the election, we may never get it.
True. In true Nigerian fashion.
And that affected a lot of things in Lagos, especially, at least I'm aware of what happened in Lagos. Low voters turnout, massive.
Yeah, especially
and you
for
look at the number
gubernatorial.
of those who collected PVC in Lagos and the number of those who voted at the end of the day. A massive local government like Alimosho didn't have up to 100,000 voters. Agege, Yankun, Eoshoti, Isolo, very low turnout. In some local government, we didn't have up to 50,000.
It was terrible in Imo too. Across the southeast, generally, voter appetite was incredible. Now we know historically that usually southeasterners are like that when it comes to elections. They don't usually turn up. But the voter appetite this year, I looked at them like, oh my gosh, this is like maybe on some other level. I don't know why they felt unconcerned. I don't know if it was that they felt unconcerned, why they did not. But I mean, away from Southeasterners now that maybe have that history, even across the country going around. So I think we'll just go away from there now real quickly and then look at, we look like INEC, and then we'll now look at the candidates. Okay, so what were the big wins that you think happened from this election, and what do you think were the big losses? Were there any surprises? Leo, I need to come to you. I mean, you've been covering Nigerian elections for, I don't know, maybe you said like 4 election cycles or even more.
Yeah.
So I need to just place this in context for us. So look at what happened this year now. What were the big wins? Were there surprises?
The big surprise had to do with the comeback bid of PDP, the opposition,
Oh, wow.
that came back massively to give the ruling party a run for their money. That was the icing on the cake, because that comeback from the cold by PDP energized voters, giving a semblance there was competition, only for INEC to now throw the wheels to the spanner.
How do you mean? So PDP began showing how serious they were about coming back into power, especially presidential power, executive power now. They started showing their seriousness right from the campaigns, I like to think.
From the primary.
Right from the
Port
primary,
Harcourt.
okay.
You understand?
Okay.
A lot of people expected, is it not PDP? But the seamless way they prosecuted that selection process, their candidates emerging without all these wranglings and all that bickering. People said, oh, they are rebranding. Something new is coming out from this party. And then from then, the rapprochement that went on, and for them to now weave together as a party, as a platform that is desirous to obtain power, get back to power, people now said yes, at least it will call the bluff of the ruling party.
So look at the presidential results now. Were you surprised? Did you expect? Did you think PDP had gathered enough followership and confidence in the people for them to displace another incumbent? Or do you think that the margin? Did you think the margin was going to be that?
Well, the thing is that if you use the 2015 election as a backlot,
okay,
I don't repose any confidence in the figures bandied about in the presidential election. Why?
Oh, wow.
Because they don't tie in. They don't add up. When you look at the fact that this time around we have two northern candidates who are Muslims, who are strong in their own right. This one is running on his integrity. This one is running on his hands-on experience on economy management. Okay. Now you begin to wonder, how can you have 2 million votes difference in 2015, only to come and have 5 million? No,
what difference in 2019?
In 2019, it doesn't add up. Now, for us, some of us who started crying from the one that Mr. Mahmoud does not inspire confidence as somebody who was prepared to organize a credible, free and fair election. That all this came together from the way they were having their adult staff, budgeting process and all that, procurement. A lot of things were not in place. You understand? Now, we cannot talk about what went wrong without saying this is what was right. What was right was that for the first time, Nigerians actually sat up to say, no, we have to have a hand in selecting our leaders. Despite the shortcomings of managing the election, but Nigerians actually showed enthusiasm to really partake in trying to...
But sadly, that enthusiasm will only apply to the presidential elections.
Yes.
I mean, by the time it came to governorship elections this week, it looked like everybody went back home to sleep and just put their doobie over there. Why do you think that the appetite for the governorship election was that bad?
I think it has to do with the outcome of the presidential election. A lot of people felt their voices were not heard because of the outcome. But I wasn't surprised that Buhari won. I was not a bit surprised, and I felt
in 19 to 17 states.
Because I felt in my own pre-election calculation, I knew, okay, I projected that Buhari was going to win 4 regions. And he won in all of those regions, but a few states in those regions. And he was going to win North Central, and he was going to win Northwest, Northeast, and Southwest. And I remember I had a discussion with somebody who was heavy research industry, and I told him this is what I feel would happen. And he felt, okay, maybe you are right, maybe you are wrong. But the outcome showed that those things that I said would happen in those regions actually happened.
But I'm still a bit worried about
especially in North Central. Nobody expected Buhari to win that much in North Central, given the fact that an herdsmen and farmer clashes almost rendered him unpopular in that region.
Yet you were not surprised by the numbers?
Look at what happened in Benue. See, we had a PDP governor who came from APC. But even in Benue, you still have people who are big wigs in APC. The former governor of the state, what's his name now? George Akume, still in APC. I'm sure he has a level of followership. In Plateau State, the current governor is an APC governor. In Nasarawa State, an APC governor. In North Central and Kogi State, an APC governor. In Kwara State, also in North Central, Lai Mohammed and the Otoge women made it almost impossible for PDP to do anything. So North Central was almost like 50-50 for anybody, but APC pulled a surprise and won almost all of the states.
But Tony, let me just address your mind to 2 things. The internal dynamics of certain states and the messaging of the opposition. These are key indicators of how far the ruling party went in the central. Because from instance, the Benue state you are talking about, the governor was paying salaries. You understand?
Yeah, just like across Ogun too, and I mean, we had governors that have not been performing like that.
Exactly. They didn't see how they will reward you in spite of the bandwagon or kind of
that also speaks why PDP should not have banked on those states. If you
Actually,
know that, yes,
which is
if you
true.
know that,
You would have
if you
expected
know that
them to
those
count
you have in
against-
those states are not up to par, then you should have done a lot more in those states. They are like what Americans call battleground states.
Okay.
You know, if a governor is not paying salaries, it's going to affect. We saw what happened in Osun State. We saw what happened in Ekiti State. We saw what happened in Oyo State, where the governor was, as a matter of fact, sent packing.
Even in Imo State.
In Imo State. So voters are more active in sending away governors that are not paying their salaries, especially when the states are heavily civil servant states.
Civil service
So
oriented, yeah.
if, as a party, you know that those who you have in such states are not doing very well, you need to put them on their toes. See, our electoral fortune depends on what you do in your states.
So this still
Actually,
seems-
because
okay,
sorry,
go on.
you know, usually elections, like second term election, are actually referendum on
the governors.
Yes, nothing short. So the people were ready to just give them their report card.
So it looks like we saw a lot of those report cards, you know, red report cards in, we saw them in the southwest as well as in the southeast, but not so much in the, especially in the northeast, where you'd say that, oh, they've had the worst casualty in terms of what's it called? In terms of loss of lives, especially in the insecurity in the past 4 years. But it looked like they still rewarded the president with a return.
No. A lot happened in the northeast. Remember that this is an area that have been traumatized by Boko Haram, insurgency and all that. What happened actually was that the governors actually budgeted a lot of money, and in the pretense that they were shepherding some of these voters to safe havens to vote, indoctrinated them, gave them the impression that we are doing you this favor for you to reciprocate. Do you understand? In the name of guiding them, they owned the voters. So the opposition hadn't much say, because you cannot provide security, provide logistics to move all these people around, and then now tying in the IDP camps. Whatever goodies you have been enjoying in the IDP camp comes from us. So it was just like bandwagon. And I return to the issue of messaging. Some of the opposition party did not actually sit down to say, okay, coming to this question of Northeast, rehabilitating Northeast, addressing the issue of insecurity, and then all this health hazard and all that. What do we tell the people? How do we get them to buy into the need to have a change of administration? They didn't do that. All these things left them at the mercy of the ruling party. That's what I think.
But unfortunately, again, I think PDP felt a bit deceived by the crowd that witnessed the political rallies, especially in Northwest and Northeast. When Atiku Abubakar went to Kano, that huge crowd. And then I could remember on Twitter, Atiku in Kano trended, and people said, oh, Atiku has already won Kano. The same thing happened in Katsina, in Adamawa, and you know, the dynamics are quite different. A lot of people could come to your rallies, and then on the day of the election, they may just, oh, I've just collected this money, I'm voting somebody else.
So we go to that important factor, that stomach infrastructure, if you like.
Elevated.
Yes, elevated stomach infrastructure. There's voter buy-in and all of that. I mean, just several months before the election, we have government welfare packages being released to people in a certain strata of society. You know, there were those that said that those packages were actually supposed to induce those people to vote in the favor of the ruling party. Then you also have those that think that what the postponement did was to signaled to the ruling party that, look, this election can go either way. And you people seem to have been running a lean campaign before now. If you want it to go your direction next Saturday, you had better roll out the money. And then, a day before election in Lagos, a party chieftain, or the ruling party chieftain, took delivery of 2 bullion vans in his private residence. You know, I'm talking about the Jagaban of Lagos. They call him Lagos. You know, when he tells you, Eko first son, Lagos wants to sleep, it means that when Tinubu wants to sleep, it means Lagos wants to sleep. Essentially, almost, if you like, the custodians, the owners of Lagos, if you like. So a day before election, we saw 2 billion vans roll into his compound. Now, those were the ones that we saw. We don't know how many had come before then, but it was those photographs that we were able to see. And it was a day before election, you know. And so it just suggested that, man, the money is about to be shared, to roll out, essentially, you know. So do you think that any of all of, were this valid fears? Because people start saying that when you have a party chieftain take delivery of bullion vans into his house, I mean, what were the vans carrying? Of course, they must have been carrying cars. What else do bullion vans carry? Just the day before election, is that not enough cost for alarm? You know, yes, and he was asked the next day when he voted, Baba, the bullion vans that came to your house yesterday, he said, I'm a private citizen. You know, so whatever I do is my business, right? So what's my question really? All of these things, do you think that inducements actually sufficiently went around? Like there was a lot of voter inducement?
It boils down to the issue of leadership. Let us not forget that the ruling party came on the promise of changing the way we do things, politically, governance, politics, and all that. Now Nigerians are conscious of what is right. Now, but when you now come to a situation where there is starvation, hunger, penury, and people have seen what happened in the past 16 years, where after voting, people now withdraw to their tinted glasses and all that, high fenced wall residences and all that. They said, well, since we have no instruments to check them, what happens is that this time around, it has to be quid pro quo. There have been dynamics of freaking in elections, but Nigeria or the process had never descended to this level that give me black so that you take. It had never been that way. And it happened because the leadership, which Nigerians repose a lot of confidence that it's coming to change a lot of things, giving the president that a lot of people ascribe a lot of integrity to, will turn the other eye and see his party chieftain displaying wealth and all that, showing people that, of course, before the bullion vans, it was hard, saying that just go and do it, I will put my hand in the pocket and give you real money. And then the bullion van was to show it is not theory, it is going to be practical.
Oh wow.
So we descended so low. Now it comes also to the issue of voter enlightenment. You understand? The educational, academic level of our voters is still so low. You understand? Because the woman who took trader money wants the continuity. She doesn't want to know what the trader money, how it will affect the economy of 6 months after.
Of course not. I mean,
so these are some of the issues that made it. Let us go pedestrian. Let us take the money. We can vote or we don't vote.
So I ask you, let's compare 2011, 2015, 2019 elections. Which was the worst of all? In terms of conduct?
Conduct of electorate or the...
No, not the entire electoral process. I mean, what you say was 2015 an improvement on 2011, because I remember 2011 we had post-election violence was really, really terrible, I recall. Yeah. And then 2015 seemed to be an improvement, at least to me, because right now I'm thinking based on violence that happened during and post-elections. 2015 seemed to be really very, very peaceful compared to 2011 especially. And then 2019, do you think that did we go forward or did we come back to 2011?
There was a report I read this afternoon that about 600 people died pre, during, and after the election. This
2019 elections.
Yes.
Oh wow!
Actually, 593 people
so far.
So far.
Because we still have reruns.
Those are the ones that could be accounted for, and that's a lot. That's a lot of human beings killed. Maybe by terrorists, maybe by policemen, soldiers, or
overzealousness.
Higher political thugs. But we can't talk about success of an election
Start
consider
looking
the
at
number
the
of people
human
that have been killed
casualties.
and say that election is successful. That is not. I think when we consider successful election in Nigeria, we should be talking about the human casualties vis-a-vis the outcome. When the outcome favors a political party and then we have a lot of people killed, then you can't say you are successful as electoral umpire or as a president.
So what do we need to do really to make sure that our elections are free of violence? Because I recall that before this election started, there's been several months of orientation and, if you like, advocacy, you know, by lots of NGOs and all of that, telling you on TV and on social media that election not war, you know, election no be war and all of that. So what will it take? What will it take? I'm asking this as a, you know, as a final question. What will it take for Nigeria to have peaceful elections?
Politicians, security agencies, INEC, and the ordinary citizens, all of us need to understand that the future of the country is tied to whatever we do at the poll. We can't blame INEC alone for everything. We can't blame security agencies for everything. Ordinary human beings also contribute to the problems that we have every time we go to poll. Somebody has come to you to say, see, I need you to disrupt election at your polling unit. I'm going to give you 10,000 naira. Yes, I am poor, but that 10,000 naira cannot last me for a month. And then you understand that if you take 10,000 naira, it's going to affect a lot of human beings. But if you don't consider that, then you can go ahead and disrupt the election. Do you understand? So politicians cannot achieve their aim of rigging if they are not active, willing human beings.
What do you think about imposing consequences? Because it looks like around here we get away with everything.
We have a poor culture of deterrence, really. How many people have been prosecuted, successfully prosecuted for violating electoral laws? We know the case of one Goswell Obebe, who tried to truncate the announcement of the presidential election
2015.
in 2015.
Right.
Where is the case today? Same thing happened in Imo, when a political agent walked to the rostrum, collected the result sheets and tore it.
Maybe politicians should also be bear consequences when their immediate polling units or the wards directly under their purview are enmeshed in violence, you know, so that everybody knows that, look, if there is violence, then everybody loses, in the sense that there will be, I don't know, maybe no results at all, or it means I'm maybe going to be banned or something. I feel like there just needs to be stiffer penalties that will also be enforced.
I try to do something like that with this election. If there is a reported case of violence in any unit, automatically the result is cancelled. I think that's good enough, but then politicians need to take a step further to be civilized in their dealings.
But over that, we have to de-incentivize public offices. That's key.
Surely.
Secondly, the idea of gathering people in one place and saying you are collecting in this modern time is outdated and outmoded. I think that by this time Nigeria would have gone beyond all this paper voting and all that. If people can have ATM that has biometrics, do you understand? There's technology there that you can vote from.
It should make the voting process also easier.
I really even think the technology is something that we cannot use. Technology was used in local government championship election in Kaduna State and it was successful. So if Kaduna can do it as a state, then I think INEC can borrow a leaf from there and do something big.
Wow, if Kaduna can do it, then it can definitely be scaled up to cover up the whole of Nigeria.
Then, but we cannot forget that particular aspect. I think I mentioned it before, the recruitment or appointment of the INEC chairman. A lot of background search of who he is. Nigerians should come to the level where a prospective INEC chairman will bring a proposal. This is how I intend to cleanse this electoral mess. And Nigerians will debate, and put him on the hot seat so that we can interrogate the processes and his submissions.
So in other words, you think the INEC chair should not just be appointed?
It should not be appointed at the whim of one person. And political parties, time have come, political parties to recommend, serious political parties, to recommend members of the Independent National Electoral Commission. So that, again, there is also the need. This constant use of ad hoc staff is rubbish.
Sure.
What are the members of Nigerian Population Commission doing? What are they doing? The staff of NPC. What do they do that they cannot, build a synergy? By looking at data, by also helping in administering the polls, instead of constant recourse to ad hoc staff.
A lot of takeaways to chew on from this conversation, and I hope that you have found it as useful. We're going to need to round up at this point in time. Thank you so much for coming, Toyin Bakari. Thank you, Leo, for also making up time from your busy newsroom schedule to be at the Guardian Studios. Thank you so much. So, you heard it all. I mean, we could go on with this conversation for several hours, but I think more importantly, we just need to remember that we need to remember that election doesn't have to be violent, and serving in political office does not have to be a do or die affair. Very importantly, we need to de-incentivize political offices so that people are not so desperate to get into the office. My name is Olade Wanze, and until I come back to you again, speaking with more guests in the studio, you have a good day.